Welcome back guys to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial, and in this video we are going to create the UI for our build system. So let's begin. I'm gonna open up my build mode. I'm gonna create a new folder and I'm gonna call this icons, and in here I'm going to place a few icons. You can find these down in the description box. They are free to use, also created by my girlfriend, and I forbid you to sell these. These are free assets. So the next thing what I want to do is I want to open up my build mode and I'm going to add a blueprint structure. This is going to hold a couple of variables, and these values will be for every single one of our builds. So I'm going to call this S buildables, and I'm going to pull this down a bit. And the first variable I'm going to call name. This is going to contain the name of the buildable. I'm going to make this a string. I'm going to add a new variable and I'm going to call this static mesh, and the type is also going to be a static mesh. And the last one is going to be icon, and the type is going to be a texture 2-dimensional, texture 2D. And for now this is going to be it. Let's save this. And in the future videos, if we get to, let's say, inventory system, we're going to add some more here for the required resources that we need to build this buildable. So now we can close this. Now we need to go to our character blueprint, and I'm going to add a variable, and I'm going to call this buildables database, buildables DB. And the variable type, I'm gonna type in our structure name that we just created, and I called it as buildables. If we compile and save this, we can see that now we have these variables here, but we need multiple of these. So what we can do is go here by the variable type, and next to it there is an icon. We can click on it, and by default it is a single variable, but we need an array. If we compile and save, now you can see that 0 RI elements, and we need 1 RI element for each buildable that we have. So we're going to have a foundation, probably a floor, a wall with a door, and wall with a window. So I'm gonna open up all of these, and I'm gonna type in the first one is going to be a foundation. For the static mesh, I'm going to search for my foundation. For the icon, again, foundation icon. Next one is going to be a floor. I'm going to type in floor, search for floor simple. Icon is going to be, again, a floor icon. Next one is going to be a wall, static mesh wall simple, icon wall icon. Next one, I'm gonna do a door, static mesh of a door simple, icon of a door, and the last one is going to be a window. I'm gonna search for window simple and window texture icon, I mean. So there we go. This is filled. We can compile and save this. Okay, we can put this aside, and now let's get to our UI. So I'm gonna go to my content browser and I'm gonna create a new folder, and I'm gonna call this UI, user interface. And since we have quite a few folders here already, I'm gonna right click my build mode. I'm gonna set the color to orange. You can do whatever color you want. That's just my preferences so that I would see better which is which. I like colors a lot, so let's select colors, and this is going to be lighter blue a little bit. So there we go. I'm gonna open up my UI folder, and I'm gonna create a couple of widgets. So I'm gonna right click, user interface, widget blueprint. First one, I'm gonna create a default HUD. If you already have a project started and you already have a default HUD, you don't have to create this. You can use your default HUD. So I'm gonna create this UI HUD. This is the default widget that we will launch at pretty much all the time. For you, this might contain, let's say, like characters level, score, health, or whatever. I'm gonna do a progress bar, which is maybe eventually going to contain a health value, but for now it's just gonna be a preview and it's not gonna actually function. If you want me to make this into a functioning one, leave a comment down below and I might do this in the future videos. So this is going to be it. That's all that I'm gonna do for this one. I'm gonna compile and save. Now we need 2 more blueprint widgets. First one I'm gonna call UI build menu, and when we click our B button, we're going to spawn this on the screen, and we need one more, and this is going to be UI buildable. We're going to spawn multiple of these inside of this one. Sounds a bit weird, but you're gonna get it in a second. So we're gonna start with this UI buildable, and in here we need to create the visuals for this, and I'm going to add a button because we need to click on something. I'm gonna make sure that I anchor this to the top full screen, and offsets are going to be 0, position Y 0, offset right 0, and size is going to be, let's say, 66 pixels. I'm gonna change the color a bit, so appearance, drop down style, drop down normal. Here under the tint, I'm gonna make this orange again. Move down the opacity a little bit, let's say 0.8. Okay, you can do whatever color you want. And I'm gonna collapse this, right click, copy, right click, paste, and paste on the pressed as well. Now I'm going to add a horizontal box to our button, and here I'm going to add a image, and I'm also going to add a text. So now we have an image and a text, but they are very, very, very close together, so I'm gonna add a spacer in between those. I'm gonna make this spacer 20 pixels in the x-axis. No, it's not the right one. Pivot point is not the right one. Here, upper in the appearance size, it's 20 pixels. Yeah, there we go. So now we have a space in between these. I'm gonna click on the image, and I'm gonna make this image size under the brush tab, image size 64 by 64. Also, I'm going to make sure that this is set to fill and it's in the middle. Although I could make these so that they would go together. So I'm gonna actually for the image I'm gonna horizontally align right for the image, and for the text I'm going to fill again, horizontally align left, and this vertical alignment middle. Oh, I did this for a spacer, so make this auto full, and for the text we need to set this to fill, vertical align center, horizontal align left. So there we go, that's that. And also for our horizontal box we need to make sure that we are filling the whole thing, and it has a padding, but I don't want to have a padding, so I'm going to change this to 0. You can leave it as it is. And now I'm gonna click on the button, press F2, and I'm gonna rename this to build button. For the image I'm gonna rename this to build icon, and for the text I'm going to rename this to build name. What also I need to make sure of is when I click on the text, I need to make sure that this is set to is variable. Same goes for the icon and same goes for the button. All of these need to be variables. So now we can compile and save, and in the right side top we can go to graph and make some blueprints. So I'm gonna delete the first one and the last one. Here we have an event construct. If you happen to delete this, you can right click and type event construct. There we have it. And now we need to add 2 more variables. The first one is going to be a build info, and the second one is going to be a build ID. The build info variable type is going to be our structure that we created, and this is going to be a S buildables, and we need this to be a single variable. And for the build ID, we need to have this as an integer, so we can compile and save. Now on the event construct, we need to drag in our build info. We need to drag from it, and we need to break the result to get all of our variables. Now I'm going to drag in the build name. I'm going to drag from it and type set text. I'm going to connect the execution pins, and I'm going to drag this name into text, which is going to convert from a string to a text. And now I'm going to drag in our build icon, and I'm going to drag from it and type set brush from texture. So here we go, set brush from texture, connect execution pins, and connect texture to the icon. So this is again crossing over, so I'm going to double click this line to make a reroute node. Instantly it looks a little bit better. So now we can compile and save, and we need to do one thing in our third person character blueprint. We need to add a new variable, and I'm gonna call this also build ID, because we need an ID, and I need to change this back to a single variable, and the type needs to be an integer. So we can compile and save this one as well. Now I can go back to my UI buildable, click on the build button, and now we can create a on click event, so plus sign. Here we go. And once we click on this button, we need to cast to third person character, and we need to get an object for this third person character. Usually what people do is they type get player character. You can do this, but this is only going to work for a single player game. So if you want to make this into a multiplayer game, I suggest you use get owning player pawn, and this is going to return this specific player that has opened this widget. So as this third person character, we need to set our build ID, connect the execution pin, and set this to our build ID. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make sure that my build info, I'm gonna select it, and I'm gonna make sure that it is instance editable and exposed on spawn. And we need to do this for both of these variables, for build ID as well, expose on spawn. Compile and save. So we are pretty much done with this one for now. Now we can open up our UI build menu. In here I'm going to add a vertical box, which is going to add vertically some results from our UI buildable. And I'm gonna anchor this to the middle. I'm gonna set position X, well actually I'm gonna start with size. So size X is going to be 600 by 800. There we go. And we need to align this to the middle. Whoops. What we can do now is we can think about these values. So X is 600, so position X needs to be minus half size, minus 300, and same goes for the Y. I'm gonna type in minus 400, and boom, it's in the middle. Awesome. Next thing what we need to add is a scroll box. Basically, if we fill this vertical box full, so that we would be able to scroll this like a web page. So I'm gonna make sure that this is set to fill, so that we would fill our vertical box, and I'm gonna rename this scroll box to our buildables list, and I'm gonna make sure that this is a variable. So I'm gonna compile, and now I can go to the graph. If you want, you can make this more stylish. You can add a background color or whatever. I'm gonna just leave it as it is. So now in the graph, again, we need our event construct, and on event construct we are going to cast to third person character again. We're going to get owning player pawn, the owner of this widget, and we are going to get our buildables database. Since this is a array, it contains multiple values, so we can do a loop for each loop, and we're going to get all the results this way. So now we need to get our buildables list. We can get well, actually no, let's put this aside. First, what we could do actually is we first could create this widget. We actually need to create this first. So create widget, and then we need to select our UI buildable. So we need to create multiple of these buttons. And since we did expose few variables on spawn, there they are, and this build info needs to be connected to this RI element, and RI index is a build ID. You can go to your third person character and click on the buildables database, and you can see that here is 0. 0 is going to be a foundation, and 4 is going to be a window, and etc. So that's going to set our build ID. Now, from this buildables list that I already dragged in, I need to add a child. We can connect the execution pins, and content is going to be this widget's return value, so like this. Now we can compile and save. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna mess with this right now. I'm gonna add a new button for now. I'm gonna remove this later, but for the testing, I'm gonna type keyboard, let's say V. On the keyboard V, we are going to create a widget, and this widget is going to be our build menu, this one. And we need to add to viewport. So now if we compile and save and go in game and press V, you can see all buttons appear. But we can't really select these, we don't have a mouse. You could do Shift F1 and the mouse appears, but it still doesn't work because we need to do some more work before it. So before the widget actually works, I'm gonna delete this whole thing, I don't need it. We're going to redo a couple of things, and we're going to set up a small system for our UI. Before that, I'm going to drag this back a little, restart build mode event, and I'm going to select all of this, starting from the line trace by channel, including the camera, till the end. And I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna make a new function, and I'm going to call this build foundation. And I'm going to paste all of my blueprints in here, connect the execution pin, compile and save, go back to the event graph. Now we can delete the things that we just copied, delete, and instead of that we can just launch this function, connect the restart, and there we go. So now it takes a lot less space in here. One more thing that I'm gonna do, you can actually go in game and test it, it does work. And I'm gonna hold Alt and click to disconnect this. I'm gonna move this, well actually I will move the B, and I'm gonna create a new custom event, and I'm gonna call this build mode. Because on the button B I want to spawn my widget rather than launch the build mode itself. I'm gonna launch the build mode from those icons that we have from the buttons. So I'm gonna put this aside, and I'm going to add a couple of functions. First I will categorize these, so I'm gonna click on this spawn build ghost, and here top we have a category, and I'm gonna type in build system, and I'm gonna just drag all of these here under the build system, so they would be categorized, and now we can actually collapse these. And I'm gonna add a new function, and I'm gonna call this clear HUD. I'm gonna also change the category to user interface, and in this clear HUD I'm going to do a remove all widgets, And I'm going to create a widget after I have removed all of them, and I'm going to add our UI HUD. Use your HUD if you already have one, and we are going to add to viewport. Now from this return value we need to get owning player, not owning player pound, but widget get owning player. And we need to display the mouse, so we can drag from this and we can type set show mouse cursor. And since this is a clear HUD function, we need to make sure that our cursor is removed, so leave this at false. And now we need to drag from our get owning player, and we need to type input mode game only. Since we are removing all the widgets, then we need our focus to be on the game itself rather than the widget. And after we have done this, we need to create a new variable, and I'm gonna call this is build menu open. I'm gonna categorize this as well, user interface. And at the end of this we need to set this to false. And if you have multiple widgets, I recommend you creating a variable for every single one of these, and then at the end just add these to false. Now once we have done that, we can compile and save this, and we need another function which I'm gonna call create. We're not gonna clear, we already did clear, so create build menu UI. And here we need to create a widget. We're going to create a UI build menu, and we are going to add to viewport. Again, we need to drag from here and get owning player. And as owning player, we need to set show mouse cursor. Connect this, set this to true because we are in the widget right now, so we need to see the mouse cursor. And also from the owning player, we need to set input mode game and UI, and this is going to force the mouse focus on this UI, and in widget to focus you need to select this widget. And at the end we need to set that is build menu open. We need to set this to true since we did open it. So now we can compile and save this. Now we can go back to the event graph, and on button B pressed we need to do a if branch, and we need to see is build menu open. And if the build menu is open, then we need to clear the HUD. If it's not open, we need to create build menu UI. I'm gonna drag this into the user interface. One more thing that I want to do is I want to stop my build mode every time I press the B button. So how to do that? Here in the build delay event, I'm going to drag from this set is build mode on, and I'm going to create a custom event which I'm gonna call stop build mode. And every time I want to stop my build mode, all I need to do is just run this event, which is going to turn the build mode off, reset the build transform, set this can we build to false, and destroy our build ghost. So I'm gonna here on button pressed B, I'm gonna type stop build mode, and there is going to be one more place where I'm gonna do that, and that is on left mouse button when we spawn our buildable. I'm gonna set this same function, so we're gonna stop our build mode. Now we can go in game, and if we press B it appears, if we press B again it disappears. Awesome. But if we click something, nothing happens. Why is it so? Well, it is because if we open up our UI buildable, we can see that on clicked, all we did was just set the build ID. We didn't do nothing else with it. So what we can do now is also drag from, well, actually I'm going to make a reroute pin here and a reroute pin here. and I'm going to drag from it as third person character, and I'm going to do a clear HUD. We're going to clear a HUD once we click on this. I'm going to do another reroute node, and I'm going to do a build mode function. Connect this, and if we compile and save, press play, press B, select buildable, and there we go. As simple as that. Awesome. So that's going to be it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we are going to try to implement the floors. So we could put floors over here and we could stack them as well. And yeah, see you guys in the next video. Bye.